Hey, listen to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MPR. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Hey!
Where do we start with this week? I'm going to open the floor up to you. Anything from Raw, SmackDown, or NXT that you want to talk about, you can pick that topic. It can be as tangential as you want it to be, or as topical as you want it to be. That's what happens when I throw curveballs. I don't know where we're going to go.
I guess we should probably talk about Kofi Kingston.
The man's going from zero to hero again.
Yeah, and at the same time, it looks like your boy Drew is possibly embracing the dark side.
Yeah, it's a weird one. So basically what's building is they're doing another sort of... Kofi Kingston is earning himself this WWE Championship title match against Bobby Lashley, but standing in his way is the big, scary, evil Drew McIntyre, who honestly is just saying, no. Just, nah, I deserve it, I should get it.
Yeah, they had a match for a number one contendership that ended in a disqualification, which is kind of predictable, but it's fine, because we have a month to the next pay-per-view. So it's not like it's that big of a deal. We can get another Kofi Drew match out. Kofi goes over, and then Kofi gets killed by our almighty WWE champion.
At this point, are we just deciding who to feed to Bobby Lashley?
Yeah, and it needs to be Kofi just because we've already had 3 matches now with Drew.
Yeah, as much as I love the guy, Drew, I wouldn't say has to go to the back of the line. He's got to get himself something that isn't the WWE Championship to have a quick feud around. And it seems like he's having a nice little mini one here with Kofi Kingston, but in the background still is Bobby Lashley and that WWE title. So, well, as you say, I think one-on-one Kingston-Lashley is it Hell in a Cell? I think it's the next pay-per-view. Maybe a triple threat, but who knows?
Maybe. I have no idea, because it is a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and it's being done so early in the year compared to where it usually is for that pay-per-view. I could see them doing Drew versus Lashley in the Cell. That's not out of the realm of possibility. As much as it would annoy me to see the match again, It would absolutely have to be the last time.
So what we're saying in this feud that's involving 3 people is that there's 3 options. Drew can win, Kofi can win, or a triple threat. We're not narrowing down the options at all. We're not picking a side of where we think it'll go. Anything's possible.
Pretty much.
But in terms of what's going to happen at Hell in a Cell, you can't say anything's possible when talking about the Raw Women's Championship.
Nope, we know the direction we're going in. It's exact what we thought it was going to be, and it just took a matter of time to get this one-on-one match between our new champion and the established best of all time that wants the throne back from her Punk Queen.
Yeah, I before we talk too much about the impending Charlotte Ripley match, I don't want to get past the fact that Nikki Kross got a win on Raw, and it was against Rhea Ripley. Okay, just sliding that in there.
Yeah, we got a Nikki Kross sighting. She's been gone for so long. I kind of forgot about her. But yeah, that's nice. But yeah, we know we're getting Charlotte, and we're getting Rhea. That is the absolute next match for Rhea. After that, who knows? Maybe Nikki.
Is it in
Maybe
a
that's
cell?
what. I don't know. I would say probably not, just because I think they just want to give Rhea a straight up one-on-one match that the win in return for the WrestleMania match from last year.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. And I think that's probably, at least at the moment, what's announced, like they haven't said it's a cell match yet. I lie. Wikipedia has it listed as a cell match. Retract everything we just said.
Okay. Well,
I'm trusting Wikipedia here, okay? It could be edited by the time we go to air, but Wikipedia at this current moment of recording says it's a cell match. I'm gonna move on just in case we're wrong. We'll just move on real quickly. And instead, jump over to SmackDown. Why not talk about a little bit of SmackDown? Because at the moment, their women's division's getting rolled and mixed around with the women's tag champs. So we've got a few things we can talk about here. But let's go with Balor. Balor seems to not be finished with Bayley here.
no, and I'm fine with that. Bayley is somebody who's always believable, especially in this particular kind of role, facing against our dominant champion, because Bayley has obviously been the most dominant champion in the last 2 years for the women. Once a certain redhead got pregnant, but yeah, it's just I think this is like the culmination for the Bayley Belair feud. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know where Balor goes, who she faces next, but this will be the end for Bayley.
Yeah. We sort of had the big one, and now we're just going to have the sort of epilogue at the end. Wrap it up, and sign, seal, and deliver a new challenger into the lap of Bianca Belair. I don't think anybody here is predicting a Bayley as champion.
Yeah, I don't. I think they would be crazy to put the title back on Bayley this quickly.
That's entirely fair. But talking about champions, Natalya, Tamina, they seem to be just going head-to-head with Jax and Baszler at the moment and coming out victorious, at least on Raw.
Yeah, our new tag team champions have finally tossed aside the old ones.
Yeah, I feel like, much like we were talking about with Bayley and Shayna, right? Of Bayley and Baszler. Bayley and Belair, I'll get there. I got there. I don't think these two teams are over just yet. You know, we had quite a sort of dirty finish on Raw. Baszler was getting mad at Reginald, and he was providing a distraction and everything, and there were fireworks or flames, pyro going off. And so I think these two teams will probably keep going at it for a little while. Do I think it'll last until Hell in a Cell? That's a different question. It's quite a while away at this point. But I also don't see a huge amount of activity in that women's tag team division outside of this feud. So maybe we will see just different combinations for the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. It's a case of like, it's good that we got new champions, but what the hell depleted the division is, and still the worst decision of the year of the NXT Women's Tag Team Championship, despite the champions. The champions are great. They shouldn't be champions because the title shouldn't exist.
Yeah, I still agree with that. I still think the titles, the main roster titles, should just be down on NXT right now. Just saying.
Yeah, the Tag Team Championships, I wouldn't care if the Way were the Tag Team Champions, because they've been great as the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions. But by eliminating that brand from being able to compete for the main tag titles, that took like half the division away that you could be using to build feuds and matches and stuff with our current champions, who happen to be the first champions that will not go to NXT.
Yeah, it's still a weird decision, you know, looking back on it and everything, and maybe that shouldn't have been the way, but we have to move ahead with the fact that it was. And after Natalya and Tamina presumably fight off Baszler and Jackson, they'll spin off and do their own thing. There's really nobody in this division other than the Riot Squad, who have been ultimately ignored for quite a long time now, in terms of main roster women's tag teams.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. There's not a lot that I can really say here, because I mean, we have so few people here that that can be as possible tag teams for the women. That we're at a point where it's like, okay, we eliminate Nia and we eliminate Shayna Baszler because they were already a tag team and they just lost the titles to them. Who's next? The Riot Squad. Well, we haven't seen them in months.
Yeah.
All right. Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. Are they ever going to win the titles? No. They could be bodies, but then after them, it's what? Lana and Naomi, and then who else?
Yeah. It's a tough one. They sort of put themselves in a little bit of a corner here. As you say, eliminating half the division off the bat does not help them at all. In terms of women that are featured as tag teams week in and week out, you really only got your current champs and their challengers that they're still fighting at the moment. Even all those other teams you listed, they're here and there. Maybe they appear, maybe they disappear. They don't, they're not solid every single week. It almost isn't a division. It's really hard to define it at that point because, to be a division, do you need bodies? To be a division, do you need to be featured constantly? Or it's a hard one. Just because there is only so many hours of television, there is only so many bodies on the roster. But with the rumors, I guess, of a bunch of NXT call-ups coming, we'll have to wait and see what we end up getting.
Yeah, here I just counted how many women are on the main roster right now. And you have to remove 2 from this count because 2 of them are currently inactive because of maternity leave. But we have a total of 24 women total between the 2 brands.
Yeah.
And then so that leaves 22 after you remove the 2 on maternity leave. And then you have 2 main champions, so that's 20. And then you already have a tag team that's champions. So that leaves 18 women. But then you have to have challengers for the 2 main titles, too.
You just keep cutting this number down. It's just falling and falling.
Yeah. So you suddenly you're at maybe 10, if you're lucky.
Yeah. And that leaves you with probably the 5 tag teams that we've listed as people we don't see as future champions, but could be bodies.
Yeah. Personally, as much as I'm so glad that at the very least Tamina finally got a title reign after all this time, but it would not bother me a bit if the titles just suddenly disappeared one day and never came back.
It's a tough one. Just have a unification already. I know the NXT Women's Tag titles have only just been around, but just have a unification. It'll sort half your problems, okay? Fix your mistakes.
Yeah, just leave the titles in a dumpster somewhere and never be seen again. And that'll be that.
Well, we are roughly halfway through the show, and we're going to play our entrance theme this week to celebrate the tag team on top of the Division of One. We will be playing Natalia's entrance theme for you right about now. And you're back with Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MPR. I'm Grady, he's Josh. We talked a little bit about Raw, we talked a little bit about SmackDown. Let's talk about some NXT. Couple things to hit on, but I'm just going to jump straight to that main event to make sure we got time to talk about it. Karrion Kross, he takes out Finn Balor, retains his title, and sort of emphatically ends it. It was 1, 2, 3, done.
Yeah, so now the question is, what's next for Finn?
It's a hard question.
Yep. I almost think he has to return to the main roster at some point. I don't think there's anything left that he can possibly do in NXT.
Yeah, it's weird because you got some mainstays, like Ciampa, Gargano, and a couple others who can sort of sit in that upper echelon of NXT for a little while, but it just feels like that isn't going to be Finn Balor. It feels like he's either on the top or he's not there.
Yeah. So, I guess then the question is, which brand could use a Finn Balor more? And what kind of role would you give him in his return? Would you make him a face or a heel?
Yeah, I think he could still go both ways, right? But like at the moment, you'd have to keep him away from either world title uh, competition because your options are feed him to Roman Reigns or feed him to Bobby Lashley. So I don't think even if he goes back to the main roster that he's going to be any sort of world championship contender off the bat. Might be safer
That's
to
why
keep him
I
down.
want to disagree with you.
Okay.
Because
Who do you want to give free dinner to?
well, I would be giving free dinner to. Here's my proposal. He returns right after at Money in the Bank.
Okay.
After Roman Reigns has successfully defended his title and takes out the champion and lays claim that he wants Roman's title, and he wins at SummerSlam.
Okay.
He's the guy that beats Roman Reigns.
Like I'm not going to agree with you, but it's a cool plan. It's a cool fantasy land. That's what this is all about, right? I don't see it happening personally, but stranger things have happened in the WWE. So I can't sit here and say no, that won't happen. I can just sit here and say I don't think that will happen. I don't know Finn Balor's role heading forward on any of the brands. But I'm interested to see where he falls, where he ends up. Because the dude can put on a good match with anyone, so we will have to see. What is next? Which piece do we talk about next with NXT? Because there's so many things. You got Imperium, you got Hit Row, you got Frankie Monet, you got the $1 Million Face-Off, you got Tian Sha, you got the number 1 contenders match next week, you got the opening match with the woman, you got Bobby Fish back in action. NXT's jam-packed. Which of the things I just said do you want to talk about first? Oh, and Dexter Lumis and Indy Hartwell. There's even more.
I guess Imperium, because something happened over the last week that I think we do need to at least acknowledge.
Yeah. They lost a member.
They ejected a member.
Ejected.
And that ejection resulted in the person being ejected from WWE.
It was quite a big ejection.
Yeah. So, Wolf is no longer with the WWE. That's why they wrote him off the way they did last week on NXT with the attack.
It's interesting to have a sort of conclusion to it. Usually if we've got these released superstars, they just disappear. But in terms of the storyline of Imperium and everything, they continue marching on, and they've sort of written it as they just got rid of the weakness, got rid of the failure, the weak link within Imperium. And Axel Tischer can, in 90 days or whenever his non-compete is up, I don't know if his contract expired or it was released, he can go do whatever he'd like to do.
Yeah. And that means that there's no threat of our boy Drake getting left behind by Killian Dane in favor of his former Sanity partner. That conclusion has been completely wiped out.
Dane could still join Imperium.
He could, yes.
There's a chance.
But it's more likely that they will stick together.
Mm-hmm.
And that could eventually lead to them in a potential match with our tag team champions, MSK.
Everything that we talk about with the main roster, and we sort of complain about it, whether that be the women's tag team division, whether that be the tag team division in general, we come back to NXT and I'm just sitting there going like, man, they just do it right. Because in terms of tag teams and that division and things that were featured, even just this week on NXT, on the 2-hour show, you had MSK, you had Legado del Fantasma getting face-to-face with them, you had an Imperium vignette when Walter said you'd better go get some gold, you have Hit Row talking about going after some gold, you have Ciampa and Thatcher having a promo off with the Grizzled Young Vets. That's so many tag teams there featured this week, and if we don't talk about the ones that are not featured even, that division's even deeper, but just featured, I listed like 7 odd tag teams. It's insane how well NXT does some stuff. And I could see any of those teams winning the titles.
Yeah, it's definitely that's definitely one of their strengths is their tag team division. And as great as it is, the other company, who I still don't name because I'm not going to.
Continue to call them the other company.
Yeah, their tag team division is probably the strongest in wrestling.
I will definitely give AEW. It's 3 letters. You can learn it too. It's the alphabet. 2 of them are in the first 5 letters. Okay, the other one's at the end. But yeah, I will give it to them. Their tag team division is also amazing. I think NXT is a close second behind that, and WWE isn't even on the charts in terms of Raw and SmackDown. But yeah, it's just so many options for MSK to defend the title against, and so many options to take the titles off of MSK. They're brand new champions, but I still wouldn't be surprised if next week they lost the belt to any of those teams I just listed. You never know. I do want to mention Frankie Monet before we move on. Purely just from a mentioning standpoint, she came out, she debuted, pretty dominant fashion, taking on Cora Jade, and then ends it with a glam slam, as Beth Phoenix has flashbacks on the commentary table. I think her exact quote was, "That looks familiar." But yeah, another strong women's division contender. Again, another thing that we talk about how NXT does it so well is that women's division. And, they already had so many great contenders, and you look in the last few weeks, Frankie Monet coming up, and Saray coming up as well, in terms of people who are going to be on the top of that division.
Yeah, our champion definitely needs some bodies to work with, but I also think we're probably looking at a future takeover main event of Frankie Monet versus the Hall of Famer Beth Phoenix.
Mm-hmm. The seeds are there. The seeds are definitely planted, and with NXT TakeOver in your house coming up, never quite know. I think it's before Hell in a Cell. I'm trying to scroll up and find it very quickly. It is Hell in a Cell June 20th, NXT TakeOver in your house June 13th. And talking about that NXT TakeOver, as you mentioned it, Karrion Kross will be defending his NXT Championship on the card, and it will be against the winner of Johnny Gargano versus Pete Dunne versus Kyle O'Reilly.
I'm calling it now. Kyle O'Reilly.
That's the logical choice.
Yep. Because you have 2 heels, and then you have Kyle O'Reilly, who is definitely not a heel. And then you have a champion who is definitely very much a heel.
You could have just called Kyle a face. Instead, you go with definitely not a heel. It's an accurate description, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, it almost has to be Kyle O'Reilly, but then the question is, can he beat our Karrion Kross when he couldn't beat Finn, and Finn was unable to beat Karrion Kross?
It's possible that it's a paper scissors rock kind of deal, but I feel like Karrion Kross is going to be holding this title for a little while longer. But yeah, Kyle O'Reilly and Karrion Kross should be an amazing match. The main event of NXT this week, where it was Kross versus Finn, was an amazing match as well. And I see that being a similar sort of archetype of the Karrion Kross versus the smaller athletic guy. And I think that's where he excels. So should be interesting to see.
They better have an ambulance ready, because they needed it for O'Reilly Balor both times. So they'll need it for this one too.
And O'Reilly Cole as well. O'Reilly ends up ending the night in an ambulance a lot of times. He might want to chill out. Maybe he should just throw the triple threat so somebody else can win. Every time, Kyle. Every time. Well, we are starting to run out of time. We can probably throw in one more thing if there's anything off of any of the three brands that you want to throw in here before we run out of time. Personally, I just want to throw in here that Indian Dexter Lumis, still an amazing storyline. Can't wait to see the conclusion of that. But is there anything you want to biff in?
Matt Riddle hit a RKO. And I think he started to drive his partner a little bit crazy.
Yeah. Is Matt Riddle driving Orton crazy, or is Orton driving Matt to the dark side?
I would be down with that. It would be something new. And I've said for a long time that while he's a good face, I think Matt Riddle would be an amazing heel because he already drives people absolutely bonkers. And so give them a reason to hate him.
Yeah. We'll have to see what happens with RK Bro in the coming weeks, because now we have officially run out of time. It's been great talking to you.
Baby.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/wrestling R&D up, or our Twitter page, twitter.com/wrestling RND up, or our YouTube page, youtube.com/RND up, and we'll see you next week.